And welcome to this week's Mailbox. This is where I look at comments that have been posted either on my Patreon or on videos or direct comments to me or Twitter or anything like that. And I pick some of the more interesting ones. Some of these are just comments, some of them are actual questions, and go through them because maybe they require a bit more of a detailed response. So the first one is about the Illidan thing. I'm going to there are a lot of comments on the various videos I've done on the Argus cinematic and stuff like that. I'm going to sort of keep those for later, but one in particular here says, what about Illidan? Like, there's probably no need to have him after this expansion. Maybe in the last fight he turns into a super demon to fight off some demons, but then loses control. We have to kill him or something along those lines. I don't think that's going to happen. The main reason being that they've completely retconned Illidan, and to do what he's done up to now, they didn't need to. The way Illidan always was in the lore all the way through Warcraft was he was a tragic figure, really. Everything he did to try and save Azeroth, save his people. He just made bad decisions. Actually, sometimes I don't think they were even bad decisions, really. I mean, he always did save his people. He always did do what he set out to do. It's just that there was always a cost that some people, most notably his brother, Malfurion, looked at it and went, "Ooh, no, that's a bit far." And he got locked up for his troubles and all the rest of it. So in terms of the overall character, he's not been a bad guy as such. He always wanted to protect Azeroth. So he could have done what he's already done. They could have had this storyline already without having to do all that retconning. So they're not going to suddenly at the end of it have him go bad or anything like that, because they could have just done what they always did in terms of the lore and still have him do what he's done so far. So that's why I don't think he's going to turn bad as such. You are probably right, there'll be no need for him after this expansion. Maybe he'll even die. Maybe it'll be a noble sacrifice and he'll die to do whatever he needs to do. I don't know. Next one is to do with Big Wigs. As my leader is pushing for that we all use the same add-on. Unfortunately, he chose Big Wigs. It is the better. Well, no, there's pros and cons to each one. Generally speaking, Big Wigs is updated more quickly if you're pushing the curve. And I'm kind of lost in the sounds. Like there's 5 types of sound in Big Wigs. There's many more than that. But I don't know what all I hear is "ta-dum," but I just overhear that or just don't know what is important. Well, that's a fair enough point. This is where it comes to customizing things. I did do a video as part of the Preparing for Tomb of Sargeras on notifications, and I use Big Wigs as my example because that's the one I use. You can change the sounds in it, and I've done a little sneaky tutorial on how you can change the sounds. So you want to change the sounds. So you want to change the sounds in Big Wig. So first of all, let's right click on it. Raid boss. Let's go to a particular boss that we want. Say Tomb of Sargeras. I don't know. Let's say Maiden. That's the one we're starting off with tonight on Heroic. So what do you want to be made aware of? Well, infusion. Infusers play with either fell infusion or light infusion. So let's say you want to know at the point at which you're going to get this buff, because you've got to check and move to the other side or stay where you are depending on what you get. So that's quite an important one. So let's click on that. So sounds, because we're just focusing on sounds here. So when we have this one, what sort of alert do we want? This is what it would do at the moment. Okay, let's say that doesn't mean anything to you. You get that for a lot of ones, and you want a particular sound to play. So what would you want? Do you want a cheer? Maybe.
Die.
Okay, there's plenty of ones in here that you could choose. Maybe Fell Nova is not the greatest one if you play a character or class that has an ability that makes the same sound. So basically just try and find something. A sound that will not play for anything else. War drums, what's that sound like? Or warning?
Warning.
That's quite good. Warning. So anything you need to alert yourself for. And all you have to do is then left click it. And it'll play that sound for you when that happens. And you can go through, you can amend all the sounds you want through Big Wigs as well to any of those things and customize it to your particular needs. Okay, we're back. So try that out as well. Next one, it says, okay, let's say this is all to do with if Sargeras is the end boss. I'm still saying I don't think it will be, by the way. but, you know, it was an interesting topic of discussion. But I still always feel as if I have to argue that it could be, because a lot of the arguments people are put, not all of them I hasten to add, but quite a lot of the arguments people are putting for, oh no, it definitely can't be Sargeras, actually I don't think are all that valid. So I keep finding myself arguing that it might be him, even though I'm thinking I don't think it is. It says, so, okay, let's say we're able to wound Sargeras, which we know we can. As I say, if some idiot orc with a wooden axe can do it, I'm pretty sure I can do it with my Ashbringer. It says, which would be BS, to be honest, but I'm going to roll with it. How would it be? It's already been done in the lore. It's already been done. We won't be able to stand against him. And this is a common argument. I've picked this one here. There's a few people who've done the same sort of thing. The guy just has to flick his pinky finger to turn this into a heap of smouldering ash, blah, blah, blah. It's the usual thing of, this guy's so big and powerful that little mortals like us can't possibly stand up against him. Which, in theory, you would say, okay, fine. But there's two problems with that line of thinking. First of all, this is a fantasy game. Second of all, that same argument also applies to dragons, which we have also beaten. I mean, you look at, you know, Onyxia, the very first start, you look at this sort of thing, it could have just squashed our tank. Take that. Didn't do. Right? Dragons are big enough to, in theory, do the same sort of thing. They're not as big as a Titan, but they're still big enough to do that. But they didn't. You know, the massive Titan constructs and keepers and things like that. Again, same thing. We've fought plenty of things that are big enough. Malagos, a dragon aspect as well. All of these things, in theory, I mean, Malagos, you could say, well, he could have just made that thing we were standing on completely disappear. I mean, he can fly after all, we'd have all been doomed. But it didn't happen. You know, there's a fantasy element to it that basically means we can do these things. And as I say, already in the storyline, Sargeras has been taken on by an orc. Yeah, all right, ultimately he didn't succeed. But he was able to stand for some time. Then it says, we simply don't stand a chance against a Titan, end of. We don't know that. But there's going to be another point I'm going to come to in a moment that all people are also seem to be forgetting. Let's have a look. It says, there is one comment someone put in, though, that I am going to have to sort of counter this. It says, according to the Aldrachi Warblades on the Demon Hunter's Lawbook, it details an encounter of the original wielder fighting Sargeras with the weapons. Actually, it details them fighting an avatar of Sargeras, so that one doesn't quite count so much. And in that particular case, that is when Sargeras went, actually, do you know what, you're all dead, and turned everyone to ash, which is potentially what people are arguing Sargeras could do to us. But then here's another thing, and I just want to put this comment before I throw something else into the mix. It says, we're only now able to beat the avatar of Sargeras. One raid tier is not enough to be able to take on the full power of Sargeras. And again, this is where people are forgetting how past encounters have worked. No one's saying we have to take on Sargeras. No one's saying that I'm going to go there with my Ashbringer in my Murloc costume and go to Sargeras just like Aragorn at the Black Gate. I challenge you to single combat, or even I challenge you to combat with 19 of my mates. No one's saying that's happening. We're forgetting what's on Argus. People keep saying, you know, Terralion and Ilaria on Argus. I'm not actually sure about Ilaria, actually. If you do the Hunter quest line, Ilaria, you'd think was with Terralion. That would make sense. They certainly went together. But I'm not sure if she is there. Hopefully she is there. And they've got the Army of the Light there as well. What is part of the Army of the Light? Why is it called the Army of the Light? Naru. Naru are going to be pretty handy against Titans, you would think. So we don't necessarily have to do this on our own. There's Naru there. Anyway, that's just throwing things in notes. The other thing I would actually say at this point, because sometimes I keep thinking to myself, in terms of the way, you know, the lore and all the background stories, and I think to myself, no, that can't happen. Maybe that could happen. But actually, to be honest, everything's out the window. They've retconned so much just for the purpose. Because that's another thing you have to remember. They have changed so much for the storyline of Legion. And a lot of the changes they've made up to now, in terms of what we know so far, I keep thinking, it goes back to that Illidan thing, they didn't actually have to make as many changes as they have. So they are planning something big that required all that retconning, because it actually hasn't been needed so far. A certain amount of it anyway. But yeah, anyway. Next one, it says, I'm not sure you'll respond to this, but I was wondering for DPS in blah, 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 if you have the legendary helm, wrist, neck, and Liadrin's ring, which would be the best combination? Now, I'm not doing this specifically to answer a rec question. It's a question in general about which legendary should I wear. Unfortunately, and you're not going to like this, because I'm going to say basically Simit. For a lot of classes and specs, and mine's now no different, there aren't clear-cut legendaries to use. Some of the legendaries are better in some situations than others. Some of them are better with going with different bits of gear. Remember, we're now in a situation where, in theory, we could have 2-piece tier 19, 4-piece tier 20. Some legendaries will occupy those slots, so that might determine which legendaries you work as well. There's actually a whole host of different combinations. So, for example, the legendaries I use for a particular encounter may not be the same ones you use. And just to see this, if you're wondering which legendaries to use, especially by now if you've got a lot of the good ones, just look at Warcraft logs, go to the rankings for your class and spec, and have a look on fight-by-fight basis. What you'll probably see, if you look at the top 10 or top 20, something like that, is you will probably see that there are legendaries in common quite often, but not always. So you want to have a look at that. Probably just go with the most common ones, if ever in doubt. But ultimately, what you ideally should do is to sim it. I'm afraid is the answer. Getting back to Sargeras again, it's hard to get away from him this week. On the lore thing with Sargeras, I doubt it will happen this way. Oh, this was quite an interesting point someone made. Yeah, this is not why I put it in. I doubt it will happen this way, but it would be very convenient for future development to have us force the hand of any remaining Titans for aid against Sargeras. I couldn't help but notice that comment when Illidan's just done it with the cinematic, his force the hand of fate speech again. As someone noted, he said exactly that same thing in Warcraft 3 Tides of Doom, wasn't it? When he was summoning the Naga. But anyway, hand of any remaining Titans for aid against Sargeras. That's assuming, and of course we don't know otherwise. We're sort of saying at the moment that the Titans are basically dead and that Azeroth and maybe any other embryonic ones are the only ones still alive. But we don't know that. Just because the Pantheon is dead, there may be Titans out there. But do those Titans know about Azeroth? Because that's my question. Do those, if there are any other Titans, maybe they've already hatched, would they know about Azeroth? Sargeras, remember, doesn't know. Well, he knows about Azeroth, but he can't get to it. So what would there be to get other Titans to get to it? Because that's all Sargeras wants to do. He just wants to get to Azeroth. So if he can't, why would other Titans be able to? So I'm not so sure about that one. But it says, for remaining aid against Sargeras, but have that bite us in the arse in some way, such as eliminating our artifacts or reducing our potentially dangerous levels of power. Would be super great if they could line it up with completely rescaling the game to maybe cap out at level 80 or so for the next expansion. So this was the interesting point here, not so much the how do you get to it. I think there is a groundswell of opinion amongst a lot of players that doesn't always get a lot of exposure, that we have become too elite as players in the game, not as people, but as our characters. We are too powerful. Every expansion we seem to need to become more and more powerful. We started off in the game as just some random adventurer. No one knew us. Okay? We occasionally rubbed shoulders with the high and mighties, but they didn't really know who we are. We had to keep introducing ourselves. And you know, we've gradually become more and more powerful. It certainly came to a head in Warlords of Draenor, when we were the ones being chosen to lead a garrison on, you know, an outland garrison on Draenor, and now we're the head of our order, so we're our class representative, and we're all getting more and more powerful, whereas a lot of people just wanted us to go back to being, you know, the adventurer who pops out at times of need. So I think a lot of people would welcome this rescaling, but I don't think they are going to do it, I have to say. I do think that there is, as I say, a groundswell of opinion that would like to see that come, and I don't think they would do it this way either. Next one, I don't play Guild Wars 2, so I don't know about the specifics of this, but it's an interesting point anyway. Blizzard forgot to copy that from Guild Wars 2, where you can get tomes granting levels from different daily things. Instead, they copied the wardrobe feature and the level scale tech. But the leveling thing is a matter of money, aka subscription. I'm not so sure, like, because this is what I was talking. I'll talk about leveling. I think this was in the Tuesday live discussion stream, you know, and I think that it very off-putting for new players. You know, new players who understand how role-playing games work, and they're being told they've got to get to level 110 before they get to see the real good content. It doesn't matter how much time it takes you to level, although I think that's too long. For a new player, you know, you think about it from our point of view, I think it's too long for us, but we can have heirlooms if we've been playing for a while. You can have heirlooms to make it go more quickly. Also, because you understand the game, you can do, you know, you go and level much more efficiently. I think for an actual new player, I think it's too much. I think the leveling is too much. All that the leveling is needed for my money, and in an MMO, leveling serves two purposes. One, it introduces you to the important storylines in the game. But the only important storyline in World of Warcraft is the latest one. So that's the level 100 to 110 leveling. The second thing it does is it allows you to get comfortable with your character by getting just like an ability every now and then. So, you know, you start off with a couple of abilities, you play for like 10 minutes before you get another one, something like that. That's an important point as well. It's not a good idea to just suddenly have a spell book, 3 pages worth of spells. It is good to get a bit at a time and to keep working out how to do it. But even then, the amount of time it takes to level from 1 to 110, or even just 1 to 100, is too great. It does need shortening in my view, and it needs massively shortening. And there are many ways to do it. They could, they could do quests that allow you to have accelerated leveling. I don't mean stuff you buy on an online store, by the way. Like, you know, on some MMOs, of course, they have, you can get yourself experience scrolls and stuff like that, so you get extra experience. I don't think that should be a thing, but they should have something that can allow you to massively accelerate your leveling, because they shouldn't see leveling as content, Blizzard, as in time, you know, a time sink. They shouldn't see it as that. And I think they do, because there are actually several ways that I'm sure they could come up with their own innovative ways of shortening the time. Still allowing players to get that storyline, still allowing them to learn the class at a reasonable rate, but it just drags. It drags on too much. And I just think for a new player, it's horrendous. Next one. This is a response to the cinematic for Kill Jaden. I'm not going to apologise. It's not, you know, when I was first talking about this, I said, oh, spoilers. I don't think it's a spoiler anymore. But I'm not, you know, where someone's responded here. He did it again. The absolute madman Illidan. Fool me twice, the betrayer. Yes, the best response I've seen to this is the following. He's done it. Illidan, even though they've retconned him, he's still the same old Illidan. He's quite good in a way. He identifies a problem and then he identifies a solution. He doesn't think whether or not the solution is going to be something that other people find acceptable. It doesn't quite go through the ethics committees, his ideas, does it? So yeah, he's done it again. Yeah, someone said here, I was talking about like Pandaren in Warcraft 3. And someone here cheekily said, oh, it's Lore Walker Cho, not Chen Stormstout. No, it wasn't. It was Chen Stormstout. Look, there he is. Just there. There's Chen. Final question. So, obviously, I was talking about some logs here. It says, obviously, the tanks have taken the most damage, you say. I remember early Trilliax kills where a few melee DPS in our group had comparable damage to tanks from standing in the purple on the floor. Why on earth were you healing them? I don't know whether you were a healer or not. Your healers should not have been healing these people. They should have been... They don't learn anything if you heal them up. Let them die. I would have done as a healer. If I'm going to say to someone, you're studying stuff... In fact, I used to, as a healer, would point out to people where they were taking too much damage. Because as a healer, you get a good view of that. If they're going to ignore me, I'm not wasting my mana. I'll just focus my mana elsewhere on people who are actually trying to live. So, yeah. But there you go. So those are the sort of questions of this week. Skirting largely away from the specific Argus type ones. I know it sort of came up in a few of them there, but it can't really be helped this week. But I'm just wondering if I sort of was maybe going to do another mailbox just with Argus specific questions. But then I keep thinking, well, the PTR might be coming out quite soon. So I'll maybe hold on to them for another week. And if we get to find out a bit more from Blizzard, then we won't have to speculate anymore. But if we don't, maybe I'll have another Argus-based discussion next weekend where we can go through some of those comments as well. So I hope you found this interesting as always. If you did, don't forget to subscribe for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.